everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. If you are joining us live, it's Friday afternoon. Yay! And if you are joining us at a better time for you, thank you so much for taking the time. And just a reminder that any questions that come up today live, you can put them into the comment question box, and also you can put them in the comment section either on YouTube or wherever you're watching it, and we will get you, and we'll get our expert to make sure that we get you the answer that you need. So I am dietitian Ashley Koff. I'm a registered dietitian for about 20 years, and I am currently the CEO and founder of the Better Nutrition Program. And why are we doing Better Nutrition expert interviews? Why are you here? Well, you're probably here because as a practitioner, you know that there are a lot of places that you can get information today, and not a lot of them are better. And in particular, not a lot of them are being presented by what we call Better Nutrition experts. I actually made up this term because I was trying to figure out a way to communicate somebody who is both science-based and practice-based. Because at the end of the day, we need to have, it's the experience that we have interacting with individuals that helps us take that science and turn it into more useful and more applicable information. So that's why we do these. And they're totally self-serving for me because I get to learn from experts about topics that are really valuable to my business, but I know that they will be valuable to yours. And I am so excited for today's conversation. Today we have Jude Charmin drawn with us, who is of Foods with Jude's, as you'll see below her name. And I am just fascinated by the concept of corporate wellness. We're going to get there, and we're going to give you tips and resources. And actually, she has this amazing affiliate program for dietitians that I want to share with you. We're going to go through all of that, but I want to start off with how the expert part, how she got to what she's doing. So by way of introduction, Jude, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your early work working with, C-level executives, and what you identified. Not that there was just one right answer, but how could we actually help somebody move forward on their wellness path? So welcome, and we'll start there.
Thank you. It's glad to be here. Well, it's interesting because there is so much nutrition information out there, right? It's just bombarding everyone, and there's a lot of truth to some of it. I mean, some of it gets skewed, and you do need to look at the nutrition information as a whole, like in the whole picture. But we got to look at what's the most important things to do because we don't have time to do it all. In fact, when I was working with CEOs specifically one-on-one, and I realized, they just don't have enough time. So you really have to hone in on what is the most important thing for these people to do. And that's really when my program evolved, and I came up with this 12-fix Lean Life program, Lean Body Smart Life program, that really honed in on these are the most important things to concentrate on. While there's lots of other things you can do, this is how you should really maximize your time for the biggest, bang, really.
And that's a great introduction, because for those of you watching live today, one of you will leave with a copy of Jude's book. So if you want to show that real quickly, it's also amazing. I learned something from her. It's Lean Body Smart Life, but you'll notice that Jude's background is blurry. This is one of the greatest things. She found a way I just always love learning from different experts, to blur out the background so that you see her and you don't see all of that, but unfortunately blurs the book a little bit. But anyway, in order to win the book, I would love for you to tell me what you think one of the most important, there are 12 fixes. Just tell me what you think is one of the most important things that somebody needs to work on, and we'll see, maybe it's one of the 12 fixes. So getting into that part, we certainly know that time is a massive challenge, right? And when we talk about corporate wellness programs, one of the things that I'm hearing a lot of from companies is that they don't want to encroach on the time of their employees, and also they have all this other stuff that they're like trying to fit in, right? You've got all these things that you need to do for HR, and you've got all these other things that we need to do. So I think time management, to me is really fascinating on that part. When you looked at the 12, let's go through real quickly. What do you think maybe just give me the top couple of the 12. Do they rank in hierarchy, or are they all of equal importance?
They're all equal importance.
Okay.
Absolutely. They all, and it's interesting because they all fit together. And even though I came up with them 8 years ago, the science supports them even more. And that's not surprising because I didn't intend for them to fit so well together, but they do.
Okay, great.
But, for instance, one of them is sugar swap, right? So we're going to replace processed sugar and a white refined flour with whole foods and get rid of the processed foods. I mean, that's a no-brainer. Anyone probably guessed that one.
Yeah.
It's obvious that that's important. But it's true. I mean, that really is an important one to maximize time. And even if people, another beauty of the program is that it's not this diet, but yet they just need to try to do these things, most of the time and not necessarily all the time. Well, that's important to make it sustainable and also giving them time to focus in on each fix individually instead of throwing a bunch of changes at people and giving them time to figure out how that fix or change can work in their life and how they can find things that like taste really good. I can do this. And if you give them time to focus on a fix and or a change per se, that allows them time to really find ways that there'll be things that they continue to do, right? Mm-hmm. So for the rest of their life, because honestly, whole foods taste great, yes. Right?
Yeah.
So they can figure out how to do it, but it's also a matter of figuring out how to do that. And that is a process. And that is what you can do. That's one of the pieces of you being there to help them is really give them some tools of like, okay, here's something easy. Here's some easy tricks to do this. Because people really don't know what to eat. In the end, we hear a lot of nutrition information, but you don't know what to eat. And that's what people need. They need quick ideas of actually what to eat. And I always do demos and I do tastings and I try to make it an experience.
Great. So when we're thinking about who doesn't have time, us, the practitioners in our lives, like often we don't have time to, one of the things I always talk about with our assessment tools is like, look, we took the time to develop these, to vet them, to make them pretty, to, do all of that stuff, like so that you can go out there, market yourself and be doing this, right? And very similarly, so the practitioner doesn't have a lot of that time, but also the HR person or the person you're connecting with around corporate wellness doesn't necessarily have a lot of time. And as we've already said, they're worried about the amount of time their employees have. So I want to move into this idea of successfully pitching, like coming up with a corporate wellness program, which you've already done. So the easy thing is like you have a rip and repeat. You have a program that dietitians can access and be able to do. But what are some of the things that have really worked for helping you sell in? And in particular, I'm using the word sell because I also know that a lot of people have come to me and said, oh, yeah, they were all for my corporate wellness program, but they thought it was a great way for me to market my services, so they didn't want to pay for it, right? So how do we do that? So let's start there with the nuts and bolts. Yeah.
You definitely need to market your services.
Yes.
As the better nutrition expert, I like that.
Yeah.
You have something that's really important to offer. And I mean, nutrition is such a big part of wellness, but my 12 fixes include other pieces as well. And those are important to integrate together. But as far as approaching and finding, the right clients for you that will pay you, I think connecting with a person, well, not, I think you need to connect with the person that's in charge of wellness, right? Usually that's an HR. And I think that the biggest tip I'd give you here, which actually Caroline Susie told me a few years back, but it's so true, is that when you connect with that person, you're finding out ways you can help that person. You are not going in there and going, oh, you need to do this, and this, and this. And they're like, that's a lot of work for me. They're super busy and stressed out. And so I think that's really an important point, is you're there to be their helper, and you need to let them know that that's what you're there for. And you need to present yourself and your program in such a way that it's actually an asset to them, that actually is making their job easier.
And so if you're making their job easier, so do you recommend, so sometimes it's even just like getting the in the door, like is it sending an email, dropping a letter off? Is it baking them cookies, lower sugar? Like what's a winning strategy there, or all the above? Yeah.
There's a lot of good strategies. And I guess the most important thing to say about that is that all of those things you said should be done. Okay. That you need to take the time to figure out what would be helpful for them, even helpful for them. It might be an article you send over that you think actually could be helpful, but you're basically doing touches. And I am all about doing touches in different ways with a client that you think is a good match for your program, like one that you can connect with. But you need to at least, at the minimum, be touching them. That's the phrase I use, touching them at least 7 times, but more like 12 times. And
7 or 12 people. We're not talking about one email and then sending a note like, I tried and it didn't work. It's like,
you'll never get anywhere that way.
Harder than getting your kids to love broccoli. I'm telling you, got to keep going and keep going. Yeah, there you go. Yes.
Well, and then, connecting with them. And so I think a lot of times people are afraid to talk to people, and you really, honestly, giving them a call and finding out how you can help them, letting them know you're there to help them and how you can help them is really the best way to connect. It helps you find out very efficiently what they need.
Right.
And a lot of times that call sort of gets sidelined and missed as like and there are better times to call during the day, right? There's better days to call. So it's better to call a business, between 3:30 and 5 or between 10:30 and noon. You want to maximize your time and get the people on the phone. That's how you do it. And don't be afraid to call. Like, really, you are selling something, but you're actually providing a service. I mean, corporate wellness, and I don't work with the big companies. I'm not, we're not doing biomarkers and things like that. But, I'm talking about small to medium-sized companies. I mean, corporate wellness is supposed to double by 2026. So, and having a wellness program is very popular now. It's like, it's like the thing to have. Companies want to have it. It gives them, like this vibe that's really like it's a good place to work and things like that, especially with the younger groups, with millennials and younger than that. So it's really, you've got that on your side. So we want to take advantage of getting in there and really helping people make the changes, and not just like there's plenty of programs where they just use biomarkers. Those don't work, right? But having that connection with the groups and the employees and the associates, that's the piece that makes the difference. And that's where you really want to help them make sustainable changes for life. And they don't have to make all the changes. You don't want to throw too much at them at once.
Yeah. And I think that's a great lead in. I want to talk about finances of the program in a moment. But before we get there, because I think that's part of the pitch, you just said, like, nutrition is so overwhelming, and we don't want them to feel like you have to do, X or you have to do all of it. So how do you, and your program does this, so I'm asking really very specifically about your program, but how do you figure out what is the right amount of content to say that you will be providing? Like, do you handle like 1 fix a month and then you get 12 fixes in the year? Okay. And when you're pitching that, let's talk a little bit about the content side. Yeah.
That's important because, like I said before, you really want to give these people time to actually figure it out in their lives. And then that gives them time to share with each other. And so we do 1 fix a month, everybody together. Right. So that works. So, I've been just trying to figure out how much information to give as I go through these and go to different companies and things like that. And it's not so much about, you give them a little bit of the science, but you give them a lot of practical applications. That's the mix. And how much money? It's a 45-minute presentation, or if it's a company decides they only have a half an hour, or, when you're doing it in person, you get to do it a little longer. Like, so half an hour to 45 minutes and even to an hour works. When you're doing it little videos or whatever, those would be, have to be really small, like, ripping them actually. So that's a different piece. You get away with a little bit more by having, a person there showing them what to do, having them taste it, making an experience. But application, like, help them, like, give them some tips, even some fun activities to do. But so you were really, we're talking about how with the company, how do you decide how much, and really the company will let you know how much time they have decided is the right amount of time. And a lot of times that's half an hour or 45 minutes. You just tailor it to that, and you just use the time they give you, and you you give them a lot of different ideas, and it's fun. It's fun. You come back and the next month, and they're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I did this. It was so good. Oh my
But
gosh!"
I think sometimes that and again, this is like, it's not a desperateness, but we're like so excited to sell and like get in and do this, So somebody was sharing with me what they were presented, and it was literally like, in our 1 hour presentation, we will assess everybody's body mass index, and we'll look at their blood pressure, and we'll talk to them about stress, and we're going to talk to them about sleep, and we're going to give them fixes and it was like, whoa, like I actually couldn't do that with one person, much less with a group, if I had a whole day. So, I think part of it is, it might seem like silly to say, today we're going to just talk about stress, or we're going to even lighter than that. We're going to talk about magnesium or the rainbow or, that kind of thing. But I really encourage them to keep it shorter because I think that I love the way you were saying an entire fix is sugar swap, because there's so much in that somebody could, be dealing with. So,
because I'm spending so much of the time actually showing them how to do it.
Yeah, that's it. Right. So you're giving them the application.
What to do. And even if it's not about food and it's about sleep or, moving, really spending the time on not why to do it, but what to do, like really what to do.
Yeah. So. And the how. I love what you're basically setting up. You guys have heard me say this before, but she's saying become their better nutrition tool, right? Their wellness tool. You have to show them how to use it. And you have to, on that part, because everything else they can Google. Everything else they can Google. So you can't be trying to compete with Google and get a corporate wellness program, on that part. So when it comes to finances, and this is challenging for certainly to give it's like when somebody says, how much protein should somebody eat? You're like, hold on, I need to know about the individual and all these. So if you're just starting out, or if you've got, 20 plus years and you're wanting to do a corporate wellness program, is there a way to think about, do you try to focus someone when you're pricing it on what's your hourly rate, or what do you want to make out of the whole package, or how do you approach the finances as a thought process, not the specific dollar?
Right. Yeah. Well, definitely you want to do a package, but, a lot of times companies, you just need to go in and do a presentation before they want to do a whole year or a whole, package. They want to see what you can provide and how you connect with people. And, is this going to work? So really doing a presentation the first time and saying to the company, here, let me just do a presentation. Here I've got these really exciting topics. Let's just do one. Let's just try it out. And I charge for that, of course, no question about it. But you do that, and then you say, okay, now let's talk about a package. This is what, whatever. And that's worked for me. I don't know that I've sold any without making that connection and doing something for them.
Okay. So that could be, a great piece of advice that we're hearing is, in putting it together is deciding maybe like put your best foot forward with one of them, go in with the thing you're most comfortable about, but price it on an individual, and then afterwards follow up with the notion of the package. I think that's so smart.
Well, you'll by how much they like you, if you can connect with the audience, with the employees and whatever, that's when you sell yourself, right? That gives you an opportunity to sell yourself, but it's not like so daunting or a lot of money up front, and then you do it. But and also just even ways to connect with, wellness committees. I mean, there's ways to do that without even being so overpowering. Whether it's you go to one of their meetings and bring a couple of samples, right? I mean, it doesn't have, it's, talking to them and saying, hey, what are you doing? And giving them some hints, like be helpful, right? It's about making relationships and them knowing that you're going to be helping them and not putting a lot of stress or are they worried it's going to, work or, all that. So I think it's important to have that attitude and not hold back because they haven't paid you, but in a conversation, them.
Yeah.
That's how you make the connection.
You're wooing them. Yeah. It's a whole dating thing here. So are there any things, one thing comes to mind that I'm going to ask you about specifically, leading the witness here, but are there any that off the top of your head are like the don'ts, like just like straight up, these are not things these are things you do not want to do during a corporate, like in that corporate wellness session, like that first one? Yeah.
Oh, the first one? Oh, well, it goes back to making it hard for the wellness committee and the HR, whoever's in charge of the wellness, because they have to set it up. You want to be available. You want to give them whatever they want. If they need, information or whatever, you need to give it to them. And you don't want them to be asking you for things. So that's just before you even do the presentation. Just really, making it too long, I think, has been the thing that I've learned. You've got to just, do it quickly and, trying to make it smooth. And sometimes that's tricky when you're doing tastings, but I really feel like it's an experience that you need to have something there. It doesn't have to be tastings particularly, but you need to have some really interactive pieces to your presentation that are completely directly related to the topic. Yeah. So I guess, I just making it hard for people. I mean, the setup and just really, that could be a problem. And then just too long, I think, too much science, too much why, and not enough how and why, and what. Yeah. So I think that's very similar to really a session with a patient. Like you might have all this knowledge, or that piece. And so so the one that was coming to mind for me that I just I sit there and I cringe when it happens. And I've been in a couple of these or heard of them, is when somebody then sells something in their in there. So they're either an affiliate, like if you're an affiliate for Beauty Counter, or you love, doTERRA oils or something else like that. It's just, I don't know. Like, I was trying to think if there's any way that can ever be a smart idea, like, especially in that first one. Yeah, I'm looking at your face. Go with it. I don't think so. It's super unprofessional. Yeah. And I will tell you that in a business setting, that does not fly. You are not there to sell a product. You're there to help their associates or employees meet a goal. And that is it. It is not to be self-serving. And it isn't about you. So that's another thing when you said, what do you not do? Okay, well, that's what you don't make it about you. And, selling a product is part of that, or mentioning it. If you mention a product, it's because you really think it will be helpful for them and you don't have any connection or ties to that product. You're just like, oh, I'm going to use this. Now, there could be a sponsorship. Right. But I'll tell you, that's hard to run through corporate. That's not the place for that stuff, really. It strikes me, the best advice I've ever given, or the advice I think I've heard that I will then share, is think of it the way you would a TV segment where, if you get approval ahead of time and you're saying like, oh, I'm brought here today on behalf of Kellogg's, or here is a company that I recommend and I work with them. The only other time I think it's fuzzy, and I've had this experience all the time, in order to make it easy for the HR person, I will say to them, so I work with Califia Farms or Perfect Bar. They are happy to, for free, send this, or the local area, person that I do lunch with, they're happy to do that part. But then you just have to so if this expectations are managed up front and then you're sharing that piece. But yeah, I think anything that's a pitch is going to be, out the door. Right. Yeah. But if you're getting a kickback from it, then if they're providing samples, right, and it's something that's helpful, that you could probably come off with. But if you're getting a kickback, right, then it's about you, and you're losing your really that sort of trust, right, that you have with them. Yeah. And it's hard, it's hard. I understand. I've heard from some people, I don't want to go too far down. I mean, we both agree that you're hearing like it's a no. And I know sometimes that is a win, or that's the way that, and I have also said that before, where I've said to someone, look, I understand that you don't have a budget for this talk. I am a paid spokesperson for Califia Farms. And if I can bring in the product and have a coffee, or we're going to do whatever while we're doing this. But anyway, we're migrating off the more of the point of the topic. I think it's an important one to take head on for a moment there, though. So it can be done. Yeah. Done in a very, very it can't be about you. Right. Or you getting money. With this notion of by 2026, we expect corporate wellness, which is a very broad term, to be doubling.
So one of the other things that I think it can prove challenging is wellness. We all know, and we all fundamentally believe here that nutrition, if you're watching, you believe that nutrition, and in particular helping people make better nutrition choices, is an essential foundational part of wellness. But there's a lot of competition in wellness today, in a good way. You know, there's exercise, there's meditation conversations, there's, you know, all sorts of different. So one of the questions that I often get asked is it better to pitch it yourself, or is it better to where you're coming in by yourself, or to grab some of these other people and try to bring something in together? Do you have a sense one way or the other?
Oh, I think it's great to bring other people in, honestly. I do. I am not a fitness expert, so I bring a fitness expert in with me. And in fact, in my program, my book, that person has done it. I mean, I use experts to be that, because we can't be an expert for everything. And, you know, that's an important and a professional piece that needs to a boundary that should not be crossed. Really.
Yeah.
I think it's great. And I think working with other people, works. I mean, it makes it more credible. People bring in different pieces. I'm all about working with other people. I think it's great if I trust them.
Totally.
And I know they're gonna deliver what I want, you know, or what needs to happen, or what I feel like has happened if I'm the one that's organized it.
Yeah.
And it all comes back to, are they going to offer people lots of tangible ways to meet the goal?
Yeah. So I have some just sort of, and maybe we've got a couple of minutes, some rapid fire questions that came into me, and so I just want to ask you. One of them was, what about like swag, or like, are you meant to bring things that are like leave behinds and things to gift, like on that part? So talk a little bit about, bring them with food and send them home with what? Yes.
Sure. I mean, I don't like a lot of junk. I like my swag, as you call it, to be very pertinent to the topic and helpful. So, but if you can get that and have companies, that's a way to bring a company in without really bringing a company in, right?
Yeah.
And leaving them with that, if a company donates to that, I think that's great. And I think prizes are wonderful. And I, again, love to have the prize really something that I feel like would help them. And so then my passion of saying, oh, you know, this kiwi cutter or whatever really does, you know, I mean, sometimes those little things aren't really that helpful, and they're just cheap or whatever. But I'd rather have one thing that's kind of cool, even if it's not that expensive, rather than a bunch of junk. So, awesome. But my point is, it needs to pertain to the topic.
Yeah. I love that. Another question that we got is about nonprofits. That this person, I think, has been asked to do talks for nonprofits, and she doesn't know. She feels like she should charge because it's business, but also she doesn't know if like she should just donate because they're a nonprofit.
Oh, well, you know, it depends. Is that nonprofit going to, like, do you do one-on-one counseling, or do you do group classes? The number one way to fill your schedule with one-on-one or group classes is by speaking. So if that's the case, then, well, maybe that is an okay fit for you, because you're going to, or maybe you're just starting out and you want to get your word out there, that kind of thing. On the other hand, if that isn't the case, and you're just doing a presentation, then you can have I have a nonprofit price and a corporate price, and you can knock it down a little bit and find out what's, you can ask them, what do you have in your budget? If they say they have nothing, there needs to be some, you can't do things for free forever, unless there was occasionally there's been in my career a time where I did it for or I saw, or I felt.
You're just like I love you. Yeah, totally.
To help you, this group of women, in downtown Cleveland that were this, religious group women that just really wanted help. I was so happy. I mean, and they scrounged together like $75 or something. It was so cute. I was fine to do it alone.
Yeah.
Something like that. Okay, that's fine. And you can feel or know, but any other time, I really feel like you can make it a win-win. And if they're not a win-win for you, then you really shouldn't do it. It takes time.
I love that. And I was telling somebody the other day, I've developed it over time, is that my answer on that part is that I reserve 1 hour a quarter that I do of like a nonprofit. And if it's booked, I'll say something like, well, I don't have a free spot available until, Q3 of next year, if you'd like to be considered for that. And that kind of explains that you do that, but it may not be what you're doing right now. And then the other part is you can say also, and this is great, you guys, or you can use our provider referral network. It's not going to be a fit for me, but I'm happy to refer you, to someone else. And I think that, again, is how can you help them, that part. Right. Okay, so we had another, and I'll probably answer this one first. They're asking, do you get information about the participants beforehand? So hands down, it is one of the best uses of our Better Nutrition assessment tools. In particular, I usually will do the magnesium assessment or the water assessment or the rainbow assessment because it allows me entry, or in the case of it's the sugar swap, I'll have them do the added sugar evaluation. It allows me to come in with them already thinking about what we're going to be talking about. So I am a big believer in assigning that ahead of time and getting. I think it also gets them excited about the event. Do you have anything that are you a yes or a no on?
Yeah, no, gathering? I think that's great. It's a wonderful asset. Just make sure you're not giving more work to people in charge.
Right.
You got to figure out how to do that without straining those people because they work so hard. HR. They work so hard, really.
Yeah, yeah.
You just have to be considerate of their time. Again, it's not about you, even if it may help you in your presentation. So if you can figure out a way to do that, which you can.
Yeah. And that's a really important point, too, because just like we have clients that don't fill something out before they come to see us, like, is it going to be a deal breaker, or is it going to be, hey, if you want to fill this out, or if you want to even just look it over, fill it out, whatever, this is going to be what we use during that. And some people just show up where they're like, you're lucky I got here, that kind of thing. So, yeah, I definitely appreciate that.
And one more quick thing on that. You can use the beginning. You have 15 minutes as people are walking in. I always talk to people during that time. I always have them, whatever we're doing, but I just want you to know that you can get a lot of information right then and there that can help you with your presentation.
Great.
So.
And I'm going to conclude with a concluding question, which is just about how do you get feedback? So somebody had shared that she had done a corporate wellness program and she didn't hear anything back from them. And so she's wondering how it went, et cetera. So just kind of wrapping all that up into what is your feedback mechanism? Waiting to hear.
Oh, I have an analysis that I often use. Mm-hmm. Presentation. So I get feedback immediately. Then the companies, or I don't always do it for companies. I mean, it could be like, an organization or whatever. They often do, but I use my analysis and then I will actually email that very quickly within a day or two to the person who who hired me and say, oh, here's the comments I got. This is, I look at it and find out some trends in it, whatever. I write them an email. So I give them an analysis, but I definitely have and as part of our affiliate program for RDNs, you get all of that kind of,
does that mean like that's like an online tracker while it's going on? So kind of like with, if I do a Zoom webinar or a GoToWebinar, I get it tracking, or is it something that you have?
You do that. Mine are all in person.
In person, okay.
And so I actually have one sitting at their desk or wherever their table, and most people fill them out. It's surprising.
Great. Oh, so they're filling it out, and then you're getting it.
They're filling it out, or if you were doing it online, then you would do it that way.
Gotcha.
However, you can get the information, and a lot of times companies are doing it anyway, and they'll give me the information. I know this health insurance company that I'm working with, that I partnered with for 2019, they actually have it there. I don't use my own. Mm-hmm. They have theirs and they have it sitting on the table for them, and then they'll give me the feedback.
Right. So. And how long between that and pitching them on, like, especially if it was your first one, you send like a thank you and here's the feedback that we got, but then when would you pitch them to do something else?
Within a week.
Okay.
We're not really, I would give it within a couple of days, give them the analysis and then say, hey, do you want to, here's a couple of ideas in that. Like I usually don't even wait a week.
Awesome. Good.
Good. At least a little bit of a hook.
Good. Well, everyone, I think we have some amazing next steps for you to take away. One thing that you can take away is if you are a dietitian, there is a program already in place for you. So I recommend that you head over to Jude's website and check that part out. If you are not a dietitian, there is also her book, which is it's got the 12 fixes in there and it's got the program, so you could really see that part in there. And I think some of the really important pieces here are just, you got to keep touching the person, reach out and touch, and do it in a way that feels organic for you. And then really focusing in when you're developing the content and sharing what kind of content you're going to provide on I'm not going to be here to tell you things. I'm going to be here to show you how to do them, what to do. Those are some really great takeaways. And then also certainly tracking and making sure that you get in there to pitch more of your services more often, so that you keep this going. And I think that way you will participate in this exponential growth that we're going to see, and really be able to do what we're hoping you do, which is bring more of this better nutrition into the wellness, corporate wellness space, which is just awesome. So Jude's, thank you so much. Just spot on, great information. I'm looking forward to giving away a copy of your book. So tell me what you think one of those fixes are. We heard sugar swap, by the way. So one of those wellness fixes today, and we will go ahead and pick a winner. We'll just say, I'll pick a winner by tomorrow, just because I know some people might not watch us until later. And thank you so much.
Great. I loved being here. Thank you.
Absolutely.